Good afternoon, everyone. All right, Sally, Albright, and I are here from Maryland. I had the opportunity of attending the first two Beaver cons because I do know Scott McGill. Hey, Maryland, if you're Maryland, oh, Claudia, yeah, Maryland, put your hand up if you're from Maryland. All right, we have some Maryland folks. So we are so excited not to be in Maryland for BeaverCon number 3. We're very excited to be in Colorado, but we did think that there should be some East Coast representation. And we weren't trying to be divisive about any of this, but we did want to represent. Okay, so if my boss sees a picture of me wearing this, she's gonna, yeah. All right, so.
It can stay there. You can be the good.
All right, so I'm wearing my Chesapeake Bay Trust gear. I am Sarah Koser. I'm a restoration program manager of the Chesapeake Bay Trust. We are a small nonprofit organization. We work in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. If you're in Maryland, keep your hand up. Virginia, anybody West Virginia? West Virginia. Nope, you're not in our watershed. I'm so sorry. Delaware, anyone from Delaware? Pennsylvania, District of Columbia. We have 7 jurisdictions in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and I'm wearing my Chesapeake Bay Trust gear because, you know, Maryland does not have a state mammal, but we do have a state reptile, and our state reptile is the only estuarine turtle in the world, the eastern diamondback terrapin. And so we're very, very excited about that. It is the only truly brackish turtle in the world. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is the largest estuary in North America. And so I'm making the segue to beavers. And did anyone watch the movie at the break? Beavers in salt marshes. Beavers are estuarine creatures, so they are occupying the brackish waters in our Chesapeake Bay, as well as our freshwater systems as well. So let's see. We come from the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We have 7 jurisdictions. We do have populations, and we are here to share some of our stories. And I'm really glad that we followed the folks from North Carolina, because we are water quality driven in our restoration in Maryland. So we are talking about some stories. Sally's going to talk about some of her case studies and maintenance as well. So just quickly, like I said, I'm with a small nonprofit in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. We partner with groups like Arundel County in Maryland. Arundel County encompasses the city of Annapolis, which is the capital of the state of Maryland. And so working together, we can acquire more and put more projects in the ground. So we make awards and we apply for grants. We're able to do this because in Anne Arundel County, they have a stormwater fee as a line item in their water bill. And so Sally and her Anne Arundel County folks, they collect the taxes or the bill from the line item, and they provide some of that to the Chesapeake Bay Trust, and then we give that as grants, community-driven grants to improve the water quality of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And we do this through stream restoration projects, tidal and non-tidal wetland restoration projects, as well as, of course, upland stormwater management. So we receive money from partnerships, we leverage what we can do, and then we give it out as grants that are community-driven. So we really want to empower folks to restore their own spaces. Okay, so we heard a lot about BDAs, beaver dam analogs, PALs, post-assisted log structures that are the procedure-based, process-based stormwater features. So this is an example project of a design that we were able to find, and you can see all of the stormwater features. These are all individual stormwater features that are creating these little pools and such all the way down the stream system. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail because we did hear already a lot about these design features. But here's some of the designs and the specific notes. How the vertical posts are proposed right here to create the post-assisted log structures, and then here's sills and brush mattresses. So these were the actual techniques that were incorporated into one of the stream restoration projects. I'm going to show you like a before and after. So we've also incorporated brush bundles, as well as what are these? Yeah, the stakes they're creating wattles as well. So all of these designs mimic beavers. Oh yeah, sorry. And this is actually what it looks like after it was completed. I don't have a pre-picture, but you can see that these are the techniques, the beaver dam analogs that are in this particular feature. You can see all the open water areas. So this is about 2 years after restoration occurred, and you can see that it's this lush, understory of Carex species, which is our sedge species, as well as probably some Impatiens capensis and maybe some ferns here. So this is what it looks like post-restoration, and you really can't tell that anything has occurred. And we do this because we want to either attract beaver or we want to mimic what they're doing. We don't necessarily expect to attract beaver in all of these situations, but it is a learning tool, and this has actually been a very pretty much solid stream restoration design, been in the ground for 2 years, been maintained. And these are kind of the folks that we want to thank. Biohabitats did the design, Meadville Land Services did the construction, Arundel Rivers was our local watershed group that we were actually providing the funds to as our grantee, and then this is Sally's group and Arundel County Bureau of Watershed Protection and Restoration that provided the funding. So I'm going to pass it off to Sally to talk about some more case studies.
Sure.
Wait, and then
Oh yeah, you can keep
here's
it
the
moving.
sorry, there's
Yeah,
two
you're
more.
fine.
This is the pre-restoration where you can see kind of a single thread channel here, and then after post you can see all the flooding, and there's no real single thread channel. So that was a pretty successful project.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. So again, my name is Sally Albright. I'm the outreach coordinator for this group with a really long name called the Bureau of Watershed Protection and Restoration. And our job is to manage stormwater, stormwater mitigation, stormwater management, both with gray and green infrastructure. And so a couple of the things I wanted to talk about today were infrastructure focused, and I'm excited that there was actually, I believe, a talk earlier that also spoke to the relationships with agency partnerships and how that has really made this work viable at a municipal level. So first thing I wanted to talk about is fish, because fish are always a hot topic, right? We're never really sure about beavers and fish and how we feel about them and if the fish are going to be able to pass. So I want to talk about a really cool one where this is in Annapolis, back home in Maryland, so it's in our city capital. This is in an urban area right by the fire department. We got a juvenile detention center right there. We got a really big bridge and a county road that goes there, Admiral Drive. And so to speak to Sarah's points about partnership here, this project that we did, we actually did a really large-scale stream restoration, and I'll show some pre and post in a moment. And what is this? A stream restoration all through here that actually has brought in beavers over time. It was not the initial goal of the project to bring in beavers, but over time, as we got smarter and realized that the beavers were going to come, we then made our design smarter to make sure that they were going to be happy and healthy and not impact our infrastructure. I also wanted to point out, I'm going to zoom in a second here. So one thing to notice is we're very tidal. This is Weems Creek going into the Severn River, going into the Chesapeake Bay, so very tidal area. And the area that I'm going to zoom in on is the area that I have very artfully created a little red line here to demonstrate where the dam is. You'll see it's actually very, very close to the road, but it is upstream of the dam, and I'll show that in a second. Or I'm sorry, upstream of the culvert. So this is a really interesting area, Cowhide Branch, or the lower Cowhide Branch draining into Weems Creek. Back in the 1990s, there was a stone check dam that was actually blown out from the hospital right up the road, and it created a major sediment plume downstream. And so in the 90s, they went ahead and put in this big old stone check dam to try and slow down that situation, effectively not knocking out fish passage entirely. And so it did solve the problem of sediment pollution. It did not solve the problem of habitat management. So that was back in the 90s. And then in 2018, we got smarter and we decided we needed to open that up. And I mean, I should say it took about 20 years, and we knew that the whole time, that that was only going to be a temporary solution. But the gears of government grind away, don't they? So in 2018, we opened up that culvert, effectively restoring fish passage. But as you can see, no beaver activity here. It is, however, a very beaver-friendly area, if you can imagine. Very nice, wide open floodplain. We got really nice tall slopes on either side of the floodplain, so we're not really worried about infrastructure upstream or people upstream. They've got a nice elevation difference between where the beavers would be and where the people would be. So we would love to see some beavers here. And we also are familiar with the fact that they were definitely here before the people were ever here. So we wanted to try and mimic those pre-colonial conditions as best as we could. So in 2021, 3 years later, we have seen a ton of plants take over this area. And I know it's not the best pre and post pictures, but this is the same area. The culvert is right here on the downstream end. And you can see we've actually installed a little pinch point here, but there is no beaver. These are rocks that we installed. we did actually go ahead and we planted about 5x the plants that we would have needed to meet stabilization requirements, and you'll see why in a second. So, oh yes, 5x, 5 times the amount of plants that we needed to plant. And we weren't just planting any plants, we were planting beaver food. So, in 2022, the beavers finally came. And so they set up shop. They have taken this area and they have made it their own. And I'm happy to say that we actually go through in the wintertime and we take cross sections of the stream. We go in waders and we actually measure the shape of the stream. We get knocked over by the fish. So there's plenty of fish upstream. Some of them are invasive, but we'll work on that later. There are fish, which is fabulous. I also wanted to note, if it weren't for that 5x planting that we did, we might have actually come into some issues with our permit. In Anne Arundel County, as with in many other municipalities, there's a stabilization requirement post-construction, and we're required to meet 85% stabilization before the project permit is allowed to be closed out. So if we hadn't planted all that beaver food, and the beavers came in and did what they were going to do, they might have actually threatened our stabilization requirements. So thankfully, we distracted them with the willows and alders, and there's plenty of plants everywhere. But interestingly enough, you see this this PVC square here. This is where we go every year for the past 5 years, and we do vegetation monitoring. So we go and we actually will count and identify every plant that is in that area. And this used to be on the ground. So we are now losing a lot of the plants, but we are, however, maximizing water quality treatment potential in this area much more than we could have ever anticipated. And there's fish. So we're very, very happy to see how this is going. And again, the flooding is fully welcome in this area. You saw that open floodplain they have to work with. There's plenty of room for them to do what they got to do. So we're not looking to do any kind of coexistence other than letting them do what they do best. So again, major takeaways from this are they are going to take down trees, and if you have a stabilization requirement, you're going to want to plant their food. In our area, willows and alders are really great bets, but also keep an eye on it, monitor and plant adaptively as needed, and you should be in good shape. So I also wanted to speak to our damming activity that gets a little bit closer to infrastructure in a little bit more of a concerning way. So I just wanted to point out this is a culvert in a very low-lying area in Pasadena, Maryland, a little bit further out from our capital, but still in a very urban area. This is a very highly used road by the residents in the area, and we're all throughout marshland here. So moving on, beavers showed up. Houston, we have a problem. The Bureau of Highways, our lovely friends here in this big orange truck, had to come out twice a week for about 6 months to deal with this. They were pretty much just repetitively unclogging, and waiting for the beaver to come back, unclogging, driving themselves insane. So, and we also had a bit of a public safety issue. That's my truck. So this was supposed to be an emergency pullout that was not where the dam was. I promise I wasn't that silly. The dam was over here somewhere, but it just flooded all throughout this emergency pullout area. So not only was this an infrastructure issue that was causing a lot of man hours and time and money to be spent, but also we were dealing with a public safety concern. The neighbor that so kindly put a chain on the back of my truck said that he did that about once a week for the other neighbors. So many thanks to Joe. So in March of 2024, we actually worked with Ecotone, and we actually installed a flow device in this area. Bureau of Highways was very, very integral in this, and we were able to sell this to them because they had been coming out every week, multiple times a week, to deal with this. And when we came to them and said, hey, we have an idea, we have a solution, and that maintenance is going to be significantly less, they were all on board and they wanted to see what we could do. Also, this was considered maintenance of our infrastructure. So just a quick note on permitting. This here was within a county right-of-way, and this was considered infrastructure maintenance. So it wasn't a significant grading permit or major permitting effort. And that's just specific to our municipality. I'm not sure about all the municipalities. And again, here's another picture of that flow device. And I guess I should say this is the fence-in pipe method, right, Ryan? Something like a pond leveler. Thank you, everyone. Still working that part out. I got to take the Beaver Corps training. But so as you can see, we moved that area out. to where the beavers can now dam upstream of the culvert. This culvert is remaining nice and clear, and here is a picture of it just 4 months later. I took a picture of it out, I believe. Yep, I took a picture out that shows more clearly how this area, the most important area, has maintained clear this entire time. Also, one thing I'll say is the neighbors were so grateful for this, and we actually were the coexistence aspect was really sold to the community in partnership with the nonprofit Magathie River Association, who are very, very closely related with this community. The community is very familiar with them. And so by working both interagency and cross-pollinating with the nonprofit community, this was something that we could sell both at the municipal and the community level. And the community's been very happy with this. So again, just closing this out, Beavers can save us money in infrastructure management. They can save us a lot of money in infrastructure management. According to Maryland Department of Natural Resources, Maryland Fur Bear Management Program, we spend in the Southeast as public employees more than 211,000 man-hours annually responding to beaver complaints. We could obviously bring that down significantly if we're thinking about the situation in Pasadena where we went down from twice a week to we haven't been out there to maintain it in a while. So it's been significant. Also, interagency partnerships, trying to sell this as not just an innovative, cool, right thing to do, but something that is going to save people time and money is how we are going to get this sold internally at the municipal level. And also being able to leverage each other's budgets. So our stormwater management budget is one budget. Bureau of Highways has their own budget. And if we were independently going about these issues, then we are working with a smaller amount of money. But if we collaborate, we take advantage of interagency partnerships, we are now maximizing our bottom line as a team. And I just wanted to leave this with an open-ended question, which I'm sure you guys are thinking about this already. But when you're considering trying to do something like this in your municipality, I would first start with who would I call if I had a beaver problem as a resident? Because that's going to change depending on where you are. In our highly urbanized area, we don't necessarily have a lot of active fish and game presence. We have more Department of Natural Resources, Public Works Department presence on our roads. That's where most of the people in our suburban area are familiar with calling when they see an infrastructure problem. Or if you're out there in open land, maybe in a conservation easement space, maybe there's a watershed-focused organization that manages your conservation easements. So think about your land managers, think about your infrastructure managers, and who would actually benefit from saved time, money, and resources from taking advantage of these practices. But with that, that's the end of our talk. Oh, I got cut off there, but you can find me on Hoover. Anne Arundel County. Go team.
And in closing, I just want to say that in Maryland, we love beavers so much that in legislation this past January 2024, we had an introduced bill called the Beaver Believer Act. Now, it did not pass, unfortunately, but Scott has told me that the language will be updated and improved upon, and hopefully will be reintroduced this next January during session, and it is to provide extra protection for beavers. So anyone have any questions?
So first of all, thank you for the East Coast representation and to the previous presenters as well. That's why I shouted out Kentucky earlier, because
Okay.
there's been a lot of talk today about stepping stones and habitat connectivity, specifically for those two restoration sites. Do you know where they came from? Is there habitat connectivity? Is there established complexes upstream and downstream?
That's a great question. So just to repeat that, make sure we're all reading the same book, asking about habitat connectivity and where these projects come from. And I'm assuming, are we thinking holistically? Are we thinking as upstream as possible whenever we can? And the answer is we do that to the best of our ability in every project. The one that's a road culvert that was dammed up, that was not a particular restoration project. That was infrastructure management. But the first one that I showed you was a capital improvement scale stream restoration. And so that one we worked within, we always try to find where are the largest impairments, but we also work within where we have the most immediate access and property owner relationships. So in that particular area, it's all county owned. And so we've been slowly moving upstream to the best of our ability, moving upstream to both protect that area and work with those property owners that were getting progressively more into like private easement conversations. So we try to work within the bounds of what is most doable, I guess. Yes, please do.
Yeah, sure. Sometimes it's taking advantage of landowners that are willing to provide restoration or allow restoration on their site. But in Maryland as well, in 2024, we just recently passed an act called the Whole Watershed Act, which is going to kind of lump and clump projects together to try to create holistic and, I guess, whole watersheds, right? Instead of doing puzzle pieces here and there of restoration, doing more of a holistic thought process for large-scale restoration.
So, I know that one of your projects worked with BDAs, and it looked amazing, I have to say. What kind of maintenance have y'all done to get there?
That is a really
Experience blowouts.
Okay, that is a really wonderful question. And maintenance is really important to us in Maryland. We're always thinking about maintenance because it's not so exciting to set aside funds for maintenance. It's really exciting to put a project in the ground and implement and get those excavators out and then have that planting and the ribbon cutting and all that. But we do, when we provide our grants for stream restoration projects like the one that I showed, we do require nonprofit applicants, and the nonprofit applicant is normally our local watershed group. And so for this particular one, it was Arundel Rivers Federation, our local group, and so they are always going out into their site, and because those BDAs were placed by hand, they can actually adjust them and take a couple shovels and take a couple extra, materials to add to it. So we are very lucky that we work with such wonderful watershed groups that are always looking out for their projects to ensure long-term success.
Do you know about how frequently
Do you know how?
It would be a guess if I were to say, but I do know that they have multiple sites that they're looking at, and by multiple I mean like 20 sites or more that they're rotating between, that they go and they do seasonal work and also adaptive management work as needed. And there's this not official, but it's about 5 years that you move from really intensive maintenance to more letting Mother Nature do what she does best, while also managing adaptively as needed. And so it's about 5 years of pretty intense routine maintenance going out at least on a seasonal basis, and then it moves to more like a triennial inspection once every 3 years over time.
seasonal is more than maintenance? That sounds great.
Yeah, I would say at least quarterly.
Yeah.
How would you say, I'm from the Midwest, but only worked in Beaver World out west. How would you say the biggest differences in either the needs, challenges, opportunities, or goals of Beaver work
So,
what are
do you want to start?
these differences?
I could repeat something that I heard yesterday that was really, really cool from the talk about water rights in Colorado. And there was a really nice distinction drawn between West and Eastern focuses of water management. And this is a generalization, but quantity versus quality, and how on the East Coast we don't really have as much of a quantity issue. We have a big quality issue, and that's what we focus on, and that's where our metrics are all driven from. Which can sometimes make beaver coexistence work really challenging because total nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment isn't something that you can get a credit for. Perfect. Yes, 1 minute. So yeah, that's my point, is quality versus quantity.
I was just going to say high-density residential. Many spaces, we don't have that wide floodplain. We're not working with ranchers that have 30,000 acres. We're with one landowner. We're working with 10 landowners on 1 acre of community space. So I would say not having that wide floodplain to work with and high density in urban areas. Plus, we don't see beaver very often.
No, they're sneaky.
We just don't have that many.
Yeah, yeah.